Hello? Hello? Okay. Let's turn off the Gabba first. Right. Welcome to the first episode of Paint Like Fiend. This is an idea I'm going to do, a series of, video tutorials painting the new Slaughterpriest figure. This is partly for my friend Joe, who wanted some painting advice and some techniques. She lives several hundred miles away, so it's not ideal to do it in person. So I thought a video could be a good way to show it off. And also it'll allow me to kind of explain and demonstrate some of my own personal styles, some of my own personal kind of ideas and tips and tricks that I tend to use, and also kind of get back to the basics of focusing a bit more on sort of general themes, concepts, painting methods, rather than the specific nitty gritty of like very specific methods or colour mixes, watering down, like really detailed stuff. I think if you get the kind of basic ideas right, that can help a lot with painting without having to use very fancy methods. So this is the new Slaughterpriest model in the grim darkness of the third millennium. 15 quid gets you this bit of plastic, or you can get it free on the cover of White Dwarf, which is now sold out. So yeah, this is Slaughterpriest, so it's supposed to be a corn model. Well, bollocks to that. Not a huge fan of corn. Joe is liking painting Tzeentch models, something which I heartily agree with because they offer some really nice colour combinations. So I've just done a little bit of sanding off and green stuff, getting rid of the corn logos. I haven't done any detailed green stuff sculpting on there, partly because we can just do a little bit of freehand, and partly because I'm a bit crap at green stuff, so I couldn't really be bothered to do that. Okay, so I'm going to assemble this with super glue, which I tend to prefer to liquid plastic glue. Trim off any mould lines, fill any gaps, and get basing it. Then do a simple base, undercoat, and explain a bit about the colours that I'm going to use on this. Okay. Okay, welcome back. Assemble the model. One thing I will say about these new Games Workshop plastics, I'm not a huge fan of plastic in general, but the detailing seems really good and it fitted together beautifully. Even the kind of ball and chain thing here had a perfect spot to go on, so credit to them for that. I filled in a few gaps with liquid green stuff. There's a little bit, I need to go over a little bit more there, but most of them are filled in pretty well. I say it's a pretty snug fit, so that's good. I took off the little skull thing off the back because I thought it looked a bit rubbish. So let's just leave a little stud there, which I'll paint like a metal thing as if something's been hammered into a skin. Perfect, spot on. The base, hopefully you'll be able to see that under there a bit. Oh, that's a bit better. With the light, got some bits of slate there. I noticed that this skull was based on little rocks. I thought I'd extend the rocks out a bit more kind of rough gravel, and then some kind of faint, kind of sandy, fine sandy stuff there. The slate, you can get it many places. I like to get my slate from the De Norwich slate quarries in North Wales near Llanberis. At my last estimate, I think there's about 20 million tonnes of slate waste just lying around the hillside, so you can get it and break it up easily. Very useful stuff, kind of quite aesthetic on a base. Bog standard granite gravel, bog standard sand. Super glued them on in that order. Doesn't really matter that it's a bit patchy on there. I'll add a bit of fake grass and stuff later on. This is not going for a super complicated base, just something that add a little bit of detail. You can obviously go do a lot more to the base. I just generally, again, unless I'm doing something really spectacular, I can't be bothered with that. I just keep it something simple as a backdrop. So final thing I do with this is I've got a little brush here and I just scrub the base, try not to break any plastic that's off the figure, just get all the kind of sand off, any of the loose sand, like so. You can get like a scalpel here, fingers well away from the blade, bit of weight on it, tap it, get any bits out. So there we go, it should be ready for undercoating next. Okay, and we're back, ready for undercoating. How exciting. Right, a couple of things to mention. First thing, I've assembled the entire figure already, even though there's quite a lot of gaps, quite a lot of difficult to reach places. There's obviously a huge debate, do you paint on the sprue, do you assemble, blah, 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 blah. I tend to mostly assemble first, because my reasoning is, if someone's really, really hard to get a paintbrush, like, hold on a sec, deep inside, if this is visible, deep inside one of these places, or right the way under here, wherever, if it's really hard to get a paintbrush, it's going to be really hard to see. So there might be the odd little gap and stuff. If it's something really super complicated, then I will paint bits of it first and then assemble it. But most of them, I figure you can get away with it. I mean, you're not really, if you're at Golden Demon where the judge is going to be like peering inside the model's arse with an electron microscope to find it's blended there, like fully shaded anal beard and stuff, then yeah, sure, you want to like get every bit covered. But for most of them, you can get away with a bit. And I'm back. Okay, so there we are. Let's get this in view. Okay, so undercoating. I have my own method for this, which I think works quite nicely, particularly with the principle of making sure, with the principle of not painting sort of too many areas you can't reach. I'm actually going to readjust this figure on here a moment. So what I tend to do is just blue tack it onto an old box. Now I'm actually spray painting this indoors in my living room, which, don't do this, it's a stupid idea. You'll breathe in toxic fumes, you'll get spray paint everywhere, but I'm doing it for this video. You're not doing a video, so do it the sensible way. Spray outside, somewhere with plenty of ventilation. Okay, so spraying. I've got Halford's, can we see that? Oops. Halford's primers. I just tested this on a bit of sprue. I've never used this one before. I just tested it to make sure it didn't melt the sprue. Games Workshop ones are fine. I have no problem with those. Obviously more expensive, but okay. Always spray undercoat. It gets much better coverage. It gets a very slightly matte finish, which is good to provide a bit of texture for the paint to adhere to. Oh, excuse me. So, my method. Hopefully this will be visible. Black undercoat. Spray it from below, trying to get it in as many of the deep crevices as possible. Short control burst, just like when you're shooting gene stealers and shit. You don't want to allow it to build up in too many places. So when that's done, do a little bit on the top, get it in the recesses here. I then get a white primer. And while it's still damp, I do like a very faint spray over the top from above. Let's see, it doesn't seem to be building up too much. Now what this does is this ends up with a nice overall grey effect. You'll see this when it dries, but it also ends up with sort of black underneath and black in the recesses. So there'll be bits where the black's gone underneath, and that'll be, you can sort of see that'll be darker under there. It also ends up with a very slightly grainy texture as well, which can work kind of nicely. Now see on here already, if this is visible, I really am not getting very good with this camera. There's a little bit of texturing where I haven't fully taken the corn symbol off properly. I know about this. I wanted to get on with the model. What I will do is I'll just put a little thick bit of paint in there when I'm painting those bits, when I'm doing the base coat on those, to make sure those areas kind of come out smooth. And plus there'll be a lot of painted stuff over there already, so it shouldn't be too cornate in the end. Okay, model is dry. Turned out pretty nice coat. Looks very white from above. Looks pretty dark from below. Obviously this is just the undercoat, but this is kind of a way I like to do things. And also it means you can control, depending on the figure, how light or dark you want the coat. You're not restricted to like a pure black or a pure white undercoat. Just generally tends to provide a nice base. Also gives you a bit of an idea in advance where the highlighting and shading might be. This is not full on zenithal lighting and shit. We'll do a little bit of that, but sort of just a general kind of good idea is useful here. One thing to say about this model is once it's assembled, he's pretty big, he's pretty beastly, and pretty detailed as well, so that should be interesting to paint. So let's talk about colours. Now this is the bit where you want to hear like really specific colour mixes. You want to know in advance all the colours you'll be using with all the detailed names, whether we're using Vallejo or Citadel or coat arms, whatever. No, balls to that. We're going to talk about general colours, much more important than specific paint usage. So this will be a Tzeentch figure. I'm doing this from a distance here. You still should be able to see it because I've got the paints to show as well. Tzeentch, lovely colours. I've always liked Tzeentch. One of my very first figures that I did well was Tzeentch. So we're talking turquoise, we're talking purples, we're talking oranges, we're talking golds. Obviously this figure isn't very Tzeentchian even with the emblem scraped off, but I think we can still convey that style with the painting. So as per the Games Workshop corn version of this figure, it's kind of quite easy to see where it's divided up. You've got a lot of flesh, you've got the kind of the cloaky bits, you've got undergarments, you've got the armour, which is kind of in two parts, the sort of inlay of the armour plates, and also the ridges of the armour plates, and you've got kind of horns, you've got the two different types of weapons, and you've got this kind of, can't see it so well on here, this mutated forearm. So there's various distinct areas to play with there. So I'm just going to choose a colour scheme which I think will work well. Now, when choosing a colour scheme, I think there's three things to do. You've got to stick to the theme of the race, the colours of the race. Nurgle will have its own colours, Elder Cross will have its own colours, Bad Moon Orcs will have their own colours, Age of Sigmar stuff, I don't really know because that just all seems a pile of shite to me. But I'm sure they have colour schemes, probably directly ripping off 40k as all the models do. So these themes, those sort of general core concepts to each of the Games Workshop races, and obviously to War Machine and whatever else, having a sort of limitation to play around with, I think, is a good idea. It says, right, we've got to stick to a certain sort of palette and let's see what we can do with that. Second thing going along with that is to input your own ideas and to have a bit of your own creative think. I've got these colours to work with, how can I use it in a way that inspires me, that does my model? Now this is easy because I haven't seen any of these painted in Tzeentch style. The Games Workshop one is a corn style, so basically we can paint it as bog standard Tzeentch as we like, and this will be our own input. But feel free to work around with those colours. Say if I do the armour in turquoise and the cloak at the back in a sort of purple, feel free to swap those. It's still all valid. And the other thing, the final thing, third important thing, is to choose sort of natural paints for areas of the model, like armour. Armour is usually going to be some sort of metal, so make the trim metal. It can be quite ornate, so an ornate colour, brass, gold, bronze would be suitable for that. Some of the areas like fabric, straps and stuff, these are not going to be so important bits of the armour, not such an important bit of the colour scheme. If this Tzeentchian dude is wanting to show his allegiance to the Chaos God of Change, he's going to show that in the bold details of his setup, getting his Chaos slaves to paint his armour in a certain colour. Straps and chains and little details, they're going to be done in a very standard way. So make them natural, make them muted, make them things that will be just a kind of background context to the broad, bold colours of the model. So always things like leather boots, like straps, pouches, chains, all of these things. Tone those down, keep those simple, use the more interesting, more specific colours elsewhere. So, paints, hopefully these will be visible under here. Ta-da, here's some paints. These are Games Workshop paints because I quite like the pots and I think the colour range is really good. I've only used a few of the new colours, so I don't know the exact quality of them. I do know the old base colours, foundation colours, I really like the coverage of them, and the washes, I think I'm still on, oh no, these are new washes. They are, to me, so good they feel almost like cheating, so I get heavy usage out of those. Feel free to use Vallejo, coat arms, whatever. Again, it doesn't really matter. I've got specific colours here. I could list all the names of them, but as long as you've got, for your painting, a selection of colours that matches what you're going to do, that's more important. So a few things to run through here. Hopefully this will be visible. I got some pale flesh colours for the flesh. I'm going to keep the flesh quite pale, quite grey, a bit kind of muted. I've got some bone colours. These are simply for the horns on the helmet, no mystery there. I've got some rich purples here. These will be for the mutated hand. Try and bring in a little element of make it stand out a bit, draw the focus to it. Now the cloth at the back, I wanted that to be purple too, but that had to be sort of contrast. I could have gone for maybe a rich royal purple for that, but I thought the hand is kind of more important. The mutation is quite a good way of saying kind of Tzeentch, and purple is a good way of saying Tzeentch, so I thought I'd highlight that. So the cloth at the back, kind of dull, muted, pale greys. It won't be quite as pastel as this, I'll mix in some other stuff. The armour, the insets of the armour, turquoise. Lovely turquoises here. I'll see how they go on. They're all called green, but they're blatantly not green. The blade, now this is another one I thought would be nice. Prominent blade. Could be like some really gory metal, but that'd be kind of quite cornate. I'm going to go for like a kind of basically a warp stone type effect on it, make it look like a truly magical thing. So I've got some nice colours. These will be lovely, I think, on that. Leathers and straps, nice dark muted colours. Let's move these back a bit. Golds, again, trying out some new new Games Workshop stuff. Go for a rich gold on the armour. It'll contrast nicely with the blue. It'll also bring in that kind of Tzeentchian orangey yellow colour. May use this one as well. It's a little bit yellow with that. We'll see how that goes. Silvers, got some quite bright silvers here, but they'll be toned down with washes. Washes, no oil, and Agrax Earthshade. Gonna need some more of them crucial stuff. With the metals, I think anything that's kind of got a business end, like the chain, like the ball, I'll go with a more kind of a silver effect. Anything that's ornate, any of the decoration, the edge of the armour, I'll go with a gold effect. Okay, so I will be back with doing the base coating, but also the base at the same time. I'll explain that one.